Welcome to our broadcast, Blumira and Beltex Insurance. Better security, better coverage, a better partnership. I'm your host, Kenna Johnson from the Channel Company. We'll explore the dynamic landscape of cyber insurance, delving into how Blumira's SIEM with managed detection and guided response can unlock exclusive access for MSPs to a new cyber insurance program from Beltex. Joining me today for this insightful discussion is Jeremy Young from Blumira and Reid Wellock from Fifthwall Solutions. Delighted to have you both with me.
Hi, Kenna. Thanks for having us.
Great to be here.
Let's get started with segment one, cyber insurance trends and challenges. How did Fifthwall get introduced to the MSP space?
I was talking with an MSP and they said, hey, have you heard of these Fifthwall guys? And I had not at the time. And they were like, yeah, they actually get cyber insurance and understand what we do. And that's not a common combination. And I got on their website and I think it was New Year's Eve, clicked the book now link because I was like, if they're crazy enough to meet me on New Year's Eve, I'm working. And I don't think they meant to leave that open because the next day the president of the company was the one filling in on the call. It was serendipitous because Reid and I got instantly jived. We've been working intentionally doing things in this space together for the past 3 years, and made some intros after that just kind of snowballed, I think, Reid.
Yeah. We, prior to being in the channel, we were working primarily in the retail channel with agents. And when our world got really, really complex, when the market started to harden, attacks were on a rise, and insurance was making all sorts of crazy moves, we realized that MSPs more and more and more and more were getting into the equation, right? And then once we kind of realized, well, wait a minute, we should be working with and through and especially in the channel with MSPs, that was right about the time that I started connecting with folks like Jeremy, that not only there were synergies as far as like what we were seeing, but then honestly, there were a lot of folks here, including Jeremy, that just taught us a lot about the channel. We could have been very ignorant in how we made our approach, but luckily I think we avoided some missteps because we were being helped by the right people.
What have you learned working with MSPs over the last 3 years that led you to create Beltex?
So I've learned a lot. I think, certainly not every MSP is created equal in terms of where they're coming from, right? What they're trying to become. And recognizing that, I think, really was a big learning lesson for us because we made a lot of assumptions of like, what does it mean to work with an MSP? But whenever we got to the stage of understanding what are MSPs really looking for when it comes to, this industry that's being shoved upon them, right? Insurance, whether they like it or not, it's just forced into their lap from their end clients with their questionnaires, a lot of questions around like, what does this mean in terms of how do I control my eligibility? How do I control my rate? And I think also for themselves and their own insurance. And so what drove us towards Beltex was to try to answer some of those questions. A lot of it was around transparency, right? What's going on behind the scenes? Where are the reins that an MSP can take control of and help their client take control of to better understand how this whole complicated equation works on the back end, right? So how can an MSP and an end client drive the same conversation when it comes to security solutions they should adopt that not only benefits their risk posture, but also is benefiting their insurance as well?
Yeah, every MSP is on their own stage of their journey in the cybersecurity path, but most of them still, regardless of where they are, have the same problems of what should I adopt? What should I be selling to my clients? And how do I get them to adopt that and pay for it? And cyber insurance can be a huge help in that. So there's obviously some ways where we can help push the needle to try and get the right things, the right outcomes. And I think Beltex was definitely a step in that right direction.
It embraced the bad cop that insurance can play in the sales of security, for sure.
Speaking of cyber insurance, what are some of the current trends and predictions for cyber insurance in 2024?
There's a lot, Kenna. I think one thing that really is becoming clear is that insurance carriers, they're trying to judge risk, right, from a distance. They're trying to understand in a ever-evolving landscape, such as cyber, Like, what does a business look like today? But also, what do they look like the days after? And in insurance it's archaic in the way it's done. It's trying to apply kind of standardized, archaic principles to ever-evolving and changing landscapes such as cyber. So in 2024, we're finally seeing some of those things catch up, right? They're trying to do more real-time validation. They're trying to create more incentives around consumers taking control of the risk, like adopting the right solutions, for example. And that's something I think when Jeremy and I were talking back in 2020, we assumed probably would have happened in 2021 with the way we were looking at it, right? We were like, well, this is the obvious thing, right? But it's a slow moving ship. So in 2024, I'm really seeing a lot of these things start to build up, and we're seeing it in the marketplace. We're also seeing more need for real-time validation. So we're seeing a lot of technologies and tools come out that allow consumers to share more, right? So it's kind of like, if you think about it right now, if you're trying to insure a house right now, you're just kind of driving by it, looking at it and seeing, oh, are there any broken windows, right? Versus having a home inspector come by and say, hey, do you mind if I just check the integrity? Like, if I can verify there are, you have a fire extinguisher in your kitchen, that the joists and beams in your basement look good, like, we're going to give you a reduced rate, right? Because we now know what good looks like. And we're starting to see that more as well. But get ready, because in 2024, another hard market is coming. I'm going to call it right here on this show, because we're seeing a lot of the data point towards a lot of carriers that are kind of doing similar patterns of what they did years ago, which kind of created a bad situation. And so I think while we're seeing a lot of growth, we might be taking 2 steps forward, 1 step back, right? But we'll see. But I'm putting my bets out there now.
So get your ducks in a row.
Get your ducks in a row.
Right, get ready.
Buckle up, baby.
Let's go to segment 2, Blumira and Beltex partnership. What is the Beltex and Blumira partnership, and who is it for?
The Beltex and Blumira partnership is for MSPs and their clients to simplify the whole process for the MSPs and their clients, and get the MSPs into the process, acknowledge that not just they exist, but they are adding value. Because yes, if you are using certain tools, you're going to get access to better coverage at lower rates. But now, really for the first time that I'm aware of, it is taking into account that the MSP can be a part of the process. And if they get certified, they can help get the clients back up and running as soon as possible, which for years, any MSP who has to go through a cyber incident, which we hope nobody does, but these things sometimes can be inevitable. An IR company comes in and they're saying, hands off, we're going to rip out all your stuff, we're going to deploy our stuff. And it just creates sometimes an adversarial relationship. If things take twice as long to come to a remediation, twice as costly, when the MSP is sitting there like, I could have these guys back up and running now if you just let me. So we are finally acknowledging their value in the process and saying, yeah, you can get them back up and running, and maybe we'll pay you for the effort. So this is one of those steps that we were hoping was going to happen years ago. Insurance, as Reid mentioned, is a slow moving ship. And hopefully this is righting the course and taking one of the steps in the right direction for the whole cyber insurance industry as a whole, acknowledging the reality of what's happening on the ground.
Yeah, and I'll just highlight what Jeremy said, because I think we're seeing more of what we're putting out there on the front end, right? Which is more transparency in the process, seeing more of the formula, right? The MSP level and at the end client level, like A plus B equals C. And so I'd like to say we're ahead of that, but certainly there's others that are coming alongside as well. On the backside, there's a lot of cost that insurers are trying to figure out. How do we reduce these costs, right? These claims are getting out of control. And they're all focusing on that, before, right? So what do we have to put in place? How high do we have to have this bar from a security standpoint? But a lot of them have missed that back end piece, because a lot of the cost, Jeremy's point, comes from that time and that energy and using these panels that are disinterested because they're not even close to the situation, where we've got highly capable MSPs right there, feet on the street, that can do isolation and containment right out of the gate. And that does a lot when it comes to then the domino effect of what a claim then looks like thereafter, and what the IR process looks like thereafter. And so something we're really excited about, and I can't wait to get MSPs involved in that, and then also showcase the data, because we're really bullish on our theory that this is a way that we can really make a dent in those costs.
The next question has two parts. We'll start with Reid first. Why did you select Blumira's SIEM as one of your vendor partners?
To be honest, mostly because Jeremy's a pretty cool guy. But actually, you know what? There are reasons from a technology standpoint, like for a SIEM, and knowing what value it really brings in not only the mitigation effort, but the transparency, right, around the data, to what I just spoke of, the after the fact. When we were looking at partnerships, it really also was around who is aligned with this vision and who understands what we're trying to do, because it is a crawl, walk, run mentality. We're not trying to go out there and blow the doors off and write as much business as humanly possible. We're genuinely trying to create something novel and new that we can then scale upwards. And the best way to do that was people that want to actually collaborate. And Jeremy and his team are those people. And knowing Jeremy for years now, it was a no-brainer to pick up the phone and say, Jeremy, like, let's do this. Let's go.
And Jeremy, what drove you to work with Beltex?
There's usually a lot of barriers to entry into getting a SIEM up and running, into getting visibility and transparency into the cyber insurance process. Anything that we can do on both sides to simplify that, to get people who don't understand the process visibility and clarity into how to get from point A to point B, we should do so. So on the topic of like, why did Beltex want to partner with Blumira? Any MSP can get access to our product and use it for free internally, instantly almost. So there's very low barrier to entry, and usually get that rolled out within a couple of hours. When you're talking about historically, SIEMs can be a 6-month project to get rolled out. So the simplicity of having this no barrier, get in, get access, and get it up and running in a couple hours, that's kind of revolutionary. And so that allows all of a much wider breadth of partners for Beltex to possibly go after. From our side, at the end of the day, the job of insurance, all insurance, is to measure risk. And so if we can align ourselves to organizations that are measuring risk and saying, if you're using Blumira, your risk goes down, and we understand that, that's why you're going to get access to better coverage at lower rates, it just makes a lot of sense. And if we can simplify that process for our partners along the way, it's a win-win.
You mentioned rates. Rates are really important. How does Blumira's effectiveness contribute to better cyber insurance rates for MSPs?
The reason that a SIEM has been around for so long, not Blumira, but as a just tool in the industry, is because it does a couple of things, or it can do when used properly. And this speaks to both the front end and the back end of cyber insurance and an incident before left of boom and right of boom, for those of you who just got back from right of boom. On the left-hand side, advanced detection and response only happens when you have log level visibility into all of the things. And so by getting easy access into, I'm going to send all of my logs to one central location, and I'm going to have a team of experts apply detection and response to it, so you get visibility to things that you had no idea were happening before. That makes you more secure, makes you less risky as an organization, because you're finding things that happen before it even enters into the attack chain. Like some tech made some mistake. Oh, now I can fix it because I know it's there. Whereas previously, if we weren't looking at logs, we had no idea. On the right of boom side, the first thing that somebody's going to ask you after a cyber incident, where are the logs? If you don't have them, you are then entering into a very costly and a very long incident response investigation, which is probably going to end up with them saying, I don't know, because you don't have the logs. Money, please. Versus if you do have all the data, they can very quickly narrow down their scope into understanding what happened to a quick remediation, which reduces downtime, increases your ability to get back up, reduces costs, and it's kind of like an insurance policy in and of itself because of the dramatically reduced costs it can have when you actually have the logs that you need during an incident.
Ditto. No, but
well
really.
Said. Well said. Thank you.
It was very well said. And I think the only thing I would add is that whenever we look at the solutions, let me say, whenever insurance as an industry has looked at the solutions in play right now that the SMB has good and readily access to, right? Particularly in the MSP channel. There's the quick and easy, and I don't want to oversimplify, but like MFA, having proper backups, even EDR, fully managed MDR now is becoming more in common. But when we look at what Jeremy just described, right, and we look at the actual impact both left and right of boot, right? SIEM really is a piece of the equation is it not desired from an underwriter perspective? Oh, yes, it's desired. Has there been a reasonable way that we've seen insurance carriers be able to make that ask universally? We have not, right? We're not seeing it. And so really being able to look at an ecosystem, that's what Blumira really has, is a defined ecosystem that has this extremely impactful tool in place, allows us a lot of creative room, right? So when we're working with our carriers and our reinsurers around negotiating rates, we can say something that not really many others can say. We can describe our risk pool to get a little insurancy in a very different way than, a general audience.
And where we started out of, it's very uncommon to find people who both understand the cyber insurance, cybersecurity, and the MSP side of it. And Fifthwall and Beltex actually do. So that allows them to say, hey, you guys should be using this SIEM. Whereas if you just ask the question as an insurance underwriter across the board, are you using SIEM? And like, what effect does it have? You're going to get a way wide variety of answers because most SIEMs out there, you can't even get them deployed and they just become shelfware and they're not really adding security value. At best, you can hope to have them be a log repository, and that's a win. But since they are in the know and they can kind of prescribe a little bit, we can say, yeah, here's one that doesn't suck and you can actually use it and get value out of it. And that allows their risk pool, their MSPs and the MSPs clientele to become less risky and more valuable to them as they're going back out to the insurance industry to make this a broader idea, which is only good for us and our clients and our industry, because it's going to lead to lower rates across the board as they define that, like, hey, this works.
In a world where basically insurance is organized gambling, this allows us to place way better bets.
That brings us to segment 3, reducing risk. Why using Blumira's SIEM moves the needle. MSPs have avoided using SIEMs for a long time. Why should they partner with Blumira, and how will it help them reduce their risk?
Man, there's no mystery as to why MSPs have avoided using SIEM for a long time. SIEMs historically are big, hairy tools that take an entire team of people to run them. And that team is usually described as a security operations center. The vast majority of MSPs don't have a single person focused on security, nonetheless, a team of them. So yeah, it's always been something that has been avoided, and rightfully so, I would say. What we are doing is changing that paradigm to where we are a SIEM that's made for IT admins. The security expertise comes along with the product, which, by the way, and I'll try not to get on my soapbox, but if you're providing a security tool to the SMB space, to the MSP space, the majority of the security expertise has to come along in the product, which with us it does. So really, we've turned it into an IT tool of, here, follow these good docs to get the logs flowing. You're done. When you get findings, they're going to come with step-by-step instructions to know what to do about it. It's going to make your techs more valuable as they logically learn how to work security incidents, more valuable to them and their careers, more value to your organization. And when they're using other security tools that don't give context and don't give instructions, it's teaching them how to work those as well, which is why I say it helps you become more valuable. I completely understand why MSPs have been avoiding this for a long time. However, there's still a truth that it's becoming unavoidable because cyber insurance, other frameworks are saying you have to have log monitoring and retention and detection and response on those logs. Hi, Blumira, have you met us? And from an MSP's perspective, we give our MSP partners free for internal use licensing. So literally, there's no reason not to. other than, oh, I've used a SIM before, I don't like SIMs. Like, yeah, we agree. Don't use those. Come check out Blumira because it actually doesn't suck and I know you're going to like it. So go ahead and get started because don't trust me. Don't trust anybody in cybersecurity. Use the tool. If you like it, keep using it. And you're going to need something in place because the train is coming and the light at the other end of the tunnel might be a train if you're not using the things you need to have in place before this market gets even harder than it has been over the past few years.
What are some of the complexities surrounding what needs to be logged and stored, and why finding the right vendor is crucial?
SIMs have been complex tools for a long time. And there's a wide breadth of different things that can send logs to a SIM. The question should be, what do we need to do for security value and in the case of an incident to log to a SIM? When you get to the point where you start to understand that most incidents start either on endpoints where humans are touching and clicking things, or in M365, which is basically the operating system of the SMB, if we start there and then work outwards from there, where is the authentication happening? Where are the logins happening? But the focus needs to be, all right, let's get firewall traffic, let's get endpoint traffic, let's get M365 traffic, and then move outwards from there. We can simplify the approach. So if you get 80% of what you need in the first couple hours, and then you can incrementally improve over time as you bring more things in, that is light years better than where we were before. Most SMBs, most MSPs have been living below the cybersecurity poverty line for a very, very long time because they can't afford the tools and they can't work the security tools because security tools mostly, historically, have been built for security people. You can't use them properly if you don't have dedicated resources to do so. Again, when you use tools where the cybersecurity expertise comes along with the product, it allows you to get yourself above the poverty line, do all the right things without having a team of dedicated resources to do it.
What makes a year of retention beneficial for quick access to historical logs required for audits and incident recovery?
Reid, I'll pitch this one to you in that a lot of the frameworks call for 1 year, NIST, PCI, or sometimes greater. In the cyber insurance world, are we coming to any consensus around data retention in terms of length for your purposes?
On our side, it's a little different because we come from the actuary world where we're trying to figure out, I don't want to get too insurance-y, but tail coverage is a real thing. So basically, whenever, even when a policy expires, right, there's still coverage in play for a period of time. But whenever the data starts coming in, the majority of events are the nexus, right, the actual entry, the triggering event, when an intrusion actually occurred was well before the actual cyber event. For us, it really comes down to, the coverage, right? And do we have access to that data to show us when that actually occurred? Some policies, unfortunately, they have exclusions around that, right? They have kind of a timestamp on how long they're going to extend that coverage historically to say, look, really it occurred at this point way back in time. But generally speaking, it's been less than a year is the average. And so from our standpoint, I think that's mainly what we're looking at. But then also whenever you're trying to do actual IR and trying to put the pieces together, you want to create better risks, right? So this wasn't always the goal, unfortunately, for our industry. It was kind of like once you got hit and you got the scarlet letter branded onto you and you couldn't get coverage again. But now it really is understanding the full progression and history of what that looked like to say, well, look, if we're going to actually mitigate and reduce that risk, what are the steps we need to take to get there so you can be insurable again, so to speak. But that's from our side. Jeremy?
You cannot protect what you cannot see. And so getting that log level visibility allows you to detect things much faster. So a lot of those stats you hear about most intrusions happen 100 days, 200 days, 300 days without, and you can see them all over the map depending on what report you're reading. But it's a long time. Most things go unnoticed for a long time before something happens that is noticed and then leads to from just turning an incident into a breach. If you don't have log level visibility, you have very little choice or very little chance of detecting those things as they happen. When you start getting it, we can take those 300 days down to 3 days, down to it happened, detecting things in real time. So that's one piece of it. But because sometimes there are things that are going to, like, there's 0 days that there are no detections on because they haven't been known as exploits. There's always some reason why someone might get hit without a detection being in place for it. As Reid said, being able to go back in time through logs, and 1 year for the vast majority of data is plenty, especially when you have advanced detection and response. You're going to be able to catch things much faster. But the whole idea of being able to go back in time, so I can say, hey, this is the date that this happened. So if you restore from backups the day before that, you are going to have a clean environment in place, is a night and day difference than just when an incident happens and the answer to the question is, oh, we stopped logging or we never started logging. They're just going to have no clue. When a plane crashes after all the people get saved, what are they looking for to understand what happened? They're looking for the little black box. Why? Because that logs every single thing that happened on that plane. Without that, yeah, we don't know what happened. Every industry, you can come up with the same example of without logging, there is no actual historical trail of evidence. So you just kind of don't know.
Reid, Jeremy, a lot of great information. Where can you learn more?
On the Blumira side, for partners, go to blumira.com/NFR to sign up for your NFR of Blumira. Also go to blumira.com/Beltex, that's BELTEX, to get started on your Beltex journey that allows you to provide better insurance at lower rates to your clients and get certified so you can get reimbursed for your work as well.
On the Beltex side, what Jeremy said, and then for Fifthwall, the parent company, just go to fifthwallsolutions.com/MSP.
Great. Jeremy, Reid, thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks, Kenna.
And thank you at home for watching. For the channel company, I'm Kenna Johnson.